Welcome to the NCHA. I'm Steve Schauer, Director of Communications. I am joined by Jim Olson, our Commissioner of the NCHA for the Commissioner's Report, the 24-25 season. Jim, let's jump into it. Just curious from your point of view, your seat that you sit in, your assessment of this season, kind of your view and what you've seen.
Well, yeah, thanks, Steve. It's great to be with you here tonight. I'll tell you, this season, well, I can't believe it's coming to an end already. Like, I can't believe it's March 5th right now, and that the championships are this weekend. But this season has been just really incredible to watch the teams, to watch the development, and really the strength of the NCHA, both men's and women alike. Just some of the great hockey that I've seen this year is absolutely phenomenal, and it's great to see the league progress the way it is.
When you look at from the preseason to kind of where we're at now, on the women's side, Adrian St. Norbert have kind of always been those top two last couple of years. On the men's side, Aurora exploded late in the season or was ranked number two in the country. Trine has been real solid the last couple of years, and you've always had St. Norbert and Adrian. You look on both sides to have the strength at the top, but this season on the bottom, you had a couple of upsets and MSUE in the women's side is a new women's program.
Yep.
They performed well. So I guess top to bottom, there isn't a huge separation, but it's a strong league from top to bottom. Can you speak to that, just what you've seen from both sides?
Here's what I really like about this conference, this league, is that anybody can really beat anybody on any given night. And we saw it this year. I mean, 1 through 10, even that 6 through 10 on the men's side and 6 through 10 on the women's, while there may be point separation, the games were tight games that decided everything. I mean, there wasn't like, our number 9 and 10 teams, they may have missed the playoffs by a few points, but the games, they were all in the games. It just didn't go their way. And I think that's really, really important. And it's to me, I look at it and go, wow, look at the parity in the conference. I mean, you had number 10, or I don't think they were number 10 at the end, I don't remember, but MSOE women goes into Adrian and takes them into overtime. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's like David versus Goliath in women's hockey, and new program versus powerhouse, and they were right there with them the whole weekend. Just really a great thing to see, especially for a new program. I know how hard the coach there has worked recruiting, getting the right girls in to build a program around. And that's just great to see. The men's side, it wasn't, I mean, we have a brand new on the men's and women's side. You have first time winner of the regular season cup of the Kronschnabel Cup and of the Peters Cup. Neither of those teams had won that award before for the regular season champion, which is phenomenal to see. You got Aurora on the men's side and you got St. Norbert on the women's side, both just coming up and just, taking care of business, working hard, and they walk out rewarded with the regular season title. And you know, I don't remember other years too where everything kind of played through 1 through 8 in the playoffs goes down to 1 through 4 in the semifinals, goes down to 1 and 2 in the final. Well, in the men's, it didn't play out that way. It's
2-4.
2-4 in the men's, yeah. But they played down pretty well. I don't remember 1 through 4 playing into the semis too often. So it's just really good to see. It's exciting to see. Hopefully it's exciting for the fans, for the players, and everybody associated with the game.
I'm gonna put this up for you. I'm curious on how you would answer this. The Twitter world or X and social media, the media reports and all the debating, right, of what league is the best, right? The women's side, two nationally ranked teams. The men's side, four nationally ranked teams. Aurora was second in the country, receiving first place votes. You as the commissioner, if you're sitting in a room with other league commissioners, why is the NCHA got have to be considered the top league in the country?
I mean, I go back to parity. Let's just focus first on the men's side. You got 4 teams in the top 10. I mean, well, okay, what other league has that? I mean, you hear coaches too talk about running the gauntlet of the NCHA.
Mhm.
The men's and women's side, you're running a gauntlet every weekend. Do you want to go play St. Norbert, Aurora, Trine, or Adrian 3 to 4 times a year and, just know how hard that is? I see it building the schedule too, right? Building the conference schedule is one of the things I have to do here in the off season and get it ready for a couple years out. And you always try to look at, I've got a layout for who plays who on what weekend, and I literally pick numbers out of a hat as to which weekend that falls. And then I got to go back and look and say, okay, make sure the long travel isn't 2 weekends
Yeah.
in a row and this isn't is fair and all that kind of stuff. But when I look at it, just trying to figure out like, okay, is it fair for, this team to play this team, then this team to play this team, in a row? And there's just no soft weekends. You can't take a weekend off. There is no weekend off in this league. It just isn't. If you take a weekend off, you're 6 points down. And it's just
Mhm.
amazing. And the same thing happens on the women's side. We had just again a good look. You had Concordia women play really, really well. You had Lake Forest women, solidify and come up with a new coach, a last minute new coach, with Coach Buddy, and added just before the season started, late in the summer. you know, the players adapt to her style, to her system quickly. And then you got some, a new coach at Adrian Women, just kind of going back there, a new old coach, if you will, going back there and taking control of that program, and everybody just playing hard. It would be hard to debate the strength of the NCHA with other leagues. And I'm not just saying that because I've, been around this league for a long, long time, since like 2007 in an administrative role, and I skated.
Don't date yourself now.
Dude, I got the gray hair. You can't hide it anymore. I'm not doing the just for men thing, but and skating the game since like 1999. I mean, I've been around this game my whole life, and it's the greatest game there is. And this conference is just a great group of people that are inside of it. It's so much fun to be around.
I am curious. I want to kind of go off from some of the questions I wanted to ask tonight. You mentioned the scheduling and you putting that together in the off season. I know that if a team is within 2 hours, we're generally going to play a home and home series. But can you speak to kind of what it takes to put the schedule together? Is it all randomized, or are you trying to set up the last weekend of the year, some of the potential big playoff matchups, or kind of how does that all play out?
So the only thing I really look at is the last weekend of the year. I would really like to be your closest opponent. And here's why. I think a lot of times schools might want to do like senior weekend, their last home game for some of the kids that are seniors. And I try to do it so each team guarantees a home game. So you have Adrian Trine, right? They can play a home and home. You have probably the longest travel in that whole thing is Aurora Dubuque. They can play a home and home. And I've talked to the ADs about it, and I think it's just fair in that last weekend. Everybody sleeps in their own bed because the next weekend, what I really want to try to avoid is if you have just, this is hypothetical, but you get Dubuque goes to Adrian, and then Adrian has to go to Dubuque first round of the playoffs or some situation like that. That's a lot of travel back to back, and I am concerned about missed school time, missed class time. I mean, but somebody's paying a lot of tuition for some of these schools, and I think they are student athletes first, with the student part first. And I want to be mindful of that because, you don't want somebody to become academically ineligible or have problems or have a lot of extra work to do just because of something I did. So I try to be mindful of that. I send it to the coaches for them to review and look at. As soon as I get it out, I've got the next 2 year schedule out to them to look at and review already. So yeah, that's the only thing I really look at is that last weekend. And then I will literally pick numbers out of a hat. I have a layout for the other weeks, pick them out and put them down on the chart and then see how it goes. And then I got to balance the home and away and who played who where. And I try to make it so, one year you're here, the next year you're at that opponent, and then just kind of keep that cycle. It may change weeks in the year, but I think that's just the fairest way to do it. And I just I'd like to get the coaches' feedback and see what they say because they catch little things. They're great at obviously scheduling. They've done it a lot longer than I have for this purpose. And they always pick up on little things that, hey, if we did this and that, and I'm like, okay. The challenge right now is because the men's and women's schedules mirror each other. So,
Okay.
for example, if St. Norbert women are at home, St. Norbert men are on the road, and vice versa. And it's designed that way to get everybody the premium ice slot. Also to balance the amount of referees you need any one given area at one time. But if you move one series, you're also moving a women's series corresponding. So, I try to also mirror up free weekends with like our Western partners in the MIAC and WIAC so that coaches have hopefully the ability to get some non-conference games in those common free weekends or non-conference scheduled weekends. So that kind of give them a little bit of opportunity to get their non-conference games into.
Jim, what do you figure a number of iterations of a schedule from start to finish before all the coaches and ADs sign off? And it's all right, here's the conference slate for this year and the following year after that. How many versions do you think it takes?
For just me alone, it's usually about 8 to 10.
Okay.
With that, I'll sit down, work on it, and you can only look at numbers so long. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm not an accountant and I didn't stay at the Holiday Inn Express last night, but I'll look at probably, an hour or two and I'll get a layout done and then I'll leave and I'll come back to it the day later. So here's version
Yeah.
two, this and that and this and that. All right, I'll come back to it. And it's probably about 10 times before I even send it to the coaches and be darned if as soon as I send it, I'm like, I forgot to change that one number. And somebody grabs it like that. And I'm like, darn it, I thought it was perfect.
Yeah.
And it never is. And I don't expect it to be. It's actually, I prefer it when I send it to the coaches that it's not perfect because it shows that they're actually doing due diligence and
Yeah.
looking at it and actually reviewing it as compared to somebody saying, hey, this looks good, right? I want them to actually take a look at it. And if there's flaws, I want them to catch it and point it out so that when we get to a coaches meeting, we can actually have a meaningful discussion. And like I say, to men's and women's both sides, they always pick something. I know Coach Todd has got me a couple times from trying about a couple weekends. I inadvertently had them on back-to-back long travels, and I don't like
Yeah.
doing that. It's little things that I go, oh, okay. And then if I miss it, it's totally on me, and we just try to work together to fix it. So.
You mentioned your passion for the game of hockey and the NCHA being around said 99 or 25 plus years or whatever the number is. Director of officials for a number of years, official for a number of years, now commissioner. How have you seen the game of hockey change in the last 25 years to what it currently is?
Wait, the game's changed? Seriously? No. Yeah, it's gotten so much better. I'll tell you. When I first started skating the game and started reffing the games, hockey's a difficult game to call as an official, and I'll speak to it from that part first. Hockey's a difficult game to call, and it was a lot harder back then. You know what I mean? Because there was no speed and skill rule of the day. It was a lot of size and a lot of who hit hard and what was too hard of a hit and what was boarding and the checking from behind thing wasn't a deal. The checking from behind the five in a game or the DQ wasn't a big deal. There wasn't even a penalty. I don't remember it being that way, or if it was, you never ever called it, unless somebody just got absolutely destroyed somewhere. There was obstruction was in the book, but you very seldom called it. And then some point later on, the NCAA and wisely so got into the speed and skill of players has to be rewarded. It made it a little bit easier as an official to call, but there's been some adaptations to that. Then we look at things like hybrid icing. Hybrid icing comes into play, and it mirrors what the NHL currently uses instead of a touch-up icing where it's a race to a certain point on the ice, and whoever's in the best position at that point determines if it's icing or not. It's a lot about speed and skill, and these kids are fast. I mean, the kids that we have playing, all these schools that we have in the NCHA, I would bet 90% of them could probably play in Division I hockey. It's one of the lines. They're fast young men and women. They're very good athletes, very good hockey players, well coached, and they've got a lot of skill out there for them. And our job now is to make sure that the games are fair, to make sure that that the players that need to get rewarded for their efforts and for their legitimate size, speed, and skill, and that we make it as fair and fun and fast of an environment as we possibly can. And it's a lot of work. It's been a lot of work. I can, as a referee, to be out there 60 minutes and then come back the next day 60 minutes. I think the one thing that I would say the most that it's different, right? When I started, the games are always 7 and 7. It didn't matter if you were driving 6 hours home the next night. It was 7 p.m., 7 p.m. There was, and then, people got like, hey, we're not getting home till 3, 4 in the morning. So can we move these game times back a little bit? Now you see the 3, 4 o'clock afternoon start if you got a long commute travel, which is actually nice. I'll give you that. But that rest time, man, between games to let your hockey referee gear and everything dry out was always a little bit nice to keep the skates on the boot dryer just a little bit longer. And then you just start the camaraderie is still there. That's the one thing I think that hasn't really changed. Camaraderie between officials, you're driving a couple hours a day to a game. Sometimes you're coming home and then doing it again the next day. Um, but it still amazes me to this day the competitive um almost like professional respect, if you will. And I've seen
Okay.
it and I've seen it a few times. And I know you and I were at St. Norbert a couple weeks ago watching a game, and after the game, you will see some of the kids come to center ice, and I've seen it from two teams come together, take a knee and say a prayer, or have
Yeah,
a moment at center ice together. And to me, that is just something that kind of hits your word because that's what it's about, right?
yeah.
Fierce competitors between the whistles, between the horns, but then after the game, you still got to come together as human beings and you got to have some mutual respect. And I think that's something that I've seen throughout hockey. There's always that handshake after the game, especially at the end of a series. We do it now after a Saturday, and you'll see it this weekend twice, one after the men and one after the women. But that mutual respect that you have for your opponent, it's something I think unique to hockey, and it's something that really makes you proud to watch these young men and women, partake in something like that.
Can you speak to, you talked a few minutes there about your time as an official and officiating, being the commissioner, third year now, new leadership comes in, things tend to change sometimes, right? How do you feel in your third year now? You kind of get all the wrinkles worked out that you want, everything's pretty smooth. I mean, kind of where are you at from the big chair?
The big chair, huh? Okay. Well, I think first and foremost, I feel a great sense of responsibility to the administrators that have blessed me with this opportunity. They gave me a chance as an interim to try it the first time and see when Don Olson, my predecessor, retired. And I'm eternally grateful for the opportunity. Like I said, I've been in this conference a long time, the old MCHA, and then, into the NCHA, some realignment stuff. Just a phenomenal group of people, phenomenal group of coaches to be around, a great group of administrators to work with. And it's very humbling to have this opportunity to work with great people like yourself, to work with Chris Lindley on the referee side. I think we work really well together. Kim Brown on our administrative side. Just the great conference office that we have because everybody's trying to do the best for the game and for the players and for the student athletes. And that's really to me what it's all about. I try to break the, I joke about it at times because when I go to a rink and they have a play-by-play person actually there and up, that's doing something between periods. Hey, you guys want to talk about the hockey between periods? Because I love to talk about this conference. I love talking and bragging about us a little bit. And some take me up on it and some don't. And that's great if they do. It's great if they don't. But, I really want to break that traditional role of a commissioner and being a single sport, part-time thing here. I have the ability to do that. I don't
Yeah.
have 15, 18 sports to get to. I have one. And I can get out and talk about some of the great things happening at the league. I got to give you a lot of credit, Steve, and I know you're a humble guy and you don't
I
really care.
appreciate that.
But just to look at, I have some crazy ideas, and let's face it, that, right? I tell
We've had a few
you,
conversations off air.
yeah, I think so. I gave you some ideas like, hey, Steve, what do you think about doing like player of the month interviews and we post them on the website or player of the year interviews? And I think the first time it was kind of like, oh God, this guy's going to drive me crazy. But I give you credit because you tried it. And I don't know what the viewing numbers is, and I think it'll continue to grow, but it sets us apart from other leagues because we're just trying something different. Again, it's all about how do you recognize and what if anybody watches this interview, we hope a few people do, but people realize that Steve puts a ton of work into really highlighting all the programs we have. It's not about just picking one school and you kind of follow them throughout the year. They have SIDs for that. You do a phenomenal job at trying to really broadcast, 1 through 10. Make sure you get something in there about each one of the players, the selecting the 3 stars of the week for the men and the women, doing a little write up, getting that all published and out, the player of the year, all the balloting, the voting, all that stuff takes time. And it all seems to come together like smooth. And, that's what I mean. Like when you look at it, Chris gets all the referees out, gets all that stuff out and assigned. It makes it easy for me because I don't ever fashion myself a micromanager, but I don't have to sit and worry so much like, oh God, I hope this weekend's covered, fingers crossed, man,
Yeah.
because you guys just make it look so good and so easy. You guys you're true professionals and this doesn't happen without you guys.
Yeah, and the efforts there to promote the schools, the student athletes, the coaches, the teams, because they are the face of the league. So Chris and I are doing everything we can to help with that. Let's turn here and talk championship hockey this weekend, Saturday, 2 o'clock, Slats Cup, St. Norbert Adrian, 1 versus 2, 7 o'clock men for Adrian against number 2 St. Norbert. St. Norbert is hosting both of those. when you look at this weekend, St. Norbert's hosting both of them against Adrian. When you looked at last year, we made the long trek over to Michigan.
We did.
It kind of seems like this again is lining up to be another intense weekend, another battle for those two trophies. Can you talk championship hockey and kind of maybe what you think might happen or expectations?
Well, what I think happened is we're going to have two phenomenal hockey games, and I've been watching all the playoffs. I mean, you look at all the playoffs have been tight games.
Hmm.
It's all been tight games, men's and women's. I mean, Lawrence gave St. Norbert a run for their money. Lake Forest gave St. Norbert women a run for their money. Adrian knocked off the number one seed on the men's side. I mean, there is, like I said before, there's no given in this league. There's just not. I mean, anybody can beat anybody. Host or not, you're going to have, I think, two really good hockey games, first and foremost. And that's what it's all about is this is the pinnacle for some playing career. For some, this might be their last college hockey game. I'm hoping that you get good crowds. Talking to the AD at St. Norbert, it sounded like they had some positive ticket sales already for the men's game, and the women's game will be day of sales, but they're anticipating a good crowd for both. Um, you know, all I can ask for and hope for is that it's a good, clean set of goals, however many are scored, so we don't have controversy in the game, and that everybody shows up and just do what they've been training and preparing all year to do, and that's to try to get that berth in the NCAA tournament.
Does that make it an exciting in multiple layers? As you look, Adrian St. Norbert traditionally the last number of years have always kind of met in that championship game. And you look this year on the women's side, Concordia, Wisconsin had a phenomenal season. On the men's side, Aurora was ranked number two. Trine was always in the mix. It was kind of almost like really don't know, can't predict anything. You just know you just gotta kind of let it play out to see
Yep.
how it happens. Does that give you any extra juice or energy to kind of really tune in and see, minute by minute what's going down?
So I'll admit, like playoff weekend, I probably had like a game on my TV. I had a couple laptops up, and then I asked my wife where her old laptop was. I had about four hockey games on at one time, between men and women. I had two on each device, and just had the games up, and it was just fun. And I'm like, mute that one, put that up, replay that, and some of you can actually go back and watch the goals again. And, if you're a fan of the game and you really, really love hockey, and you're a fan of just, I'll call it's the best sport around just because of the speed and skill, and to
Mhm.
watch what these players do on like a quarter of an inch of steel and the way you move and fly around the ice and still control a puck and everything. I mean, it's just so much fun to watch. They're so good, and it's just such um, phenomenal athletes all the way top to bottom. So it definitely makes you a bigger fan of the game.
After this weekend, the winners will receive the automatic bid from the NCHA to the NCAA tournament. I'm curious if you can share with our viewers from a commissioner league standpoint, do you have any communication with the NCAA to kind of lobby your bid to get a second team in to the tournament beyond just the automatic qualifier? You look on the men's side this year, St. Norbert and Aurora are fourth and fifth in the MPI index rating, first and second in the regional rating. On the women's side, you have St. Norbert and Adrian in the mix there as well. Do you do anything to kind of pick up the phone to like, hey, maybe we should get two here instead of one, or does that not play out at all from your seat?
I wish that was a possibility, but it's just not. Everything right now goes right off the NPI. So
Yeah.
what really affects it most is you watch for upsets. When upsets happen and a team that's high in the NPI loses in their league tournament, whoever wins that AQ, now you've got the high team that would get an at-large bid. And there's only like four at-large bids in the
Mhm.
men's
That's
tournament.
not many.
So, it really shows you got to be in it to win it. If you win your AQ, you might. I think we're well positioned on the men's side. On the women's side, it's tight. There's a lot of good West teams that are high in the rankings. Augsburg, I believe, is up there.
Yeah.
River Falls is up there. Adrian and St. Norbert are both up there. So in the West, there's a lot of good competition that is highly ranked, good in the NPI. And it's just a matter of watching to see who wins it and who wins their AQs. And to a degree, you hope for not a lot of upsets because that kind of helps us with the at-large bids too.
All right, after this weekend NCAA tournament and a couple of weekends, season will be over. Right? We talked about scheduling for this year and next year you have done. What will you, Jim, the league commissioner, do throughout the course of summer before you start preparing for the 2025-26 season?
Yeah, I'd like to say that, I just go to a beach and relax, but that just doesn't happen. My wife jokes because she's like, hockey season never ends. I'm like, no, it's the greatest sport ever. Why would you want it to end? But in all seriousness, there's always something to get ready for. There's always scheduling. We have league meetings sometime coming up here. We got to set that up here in April. And then it's just what do we come out of there with? There's always different talks and different projects that come up, things that we have to that I got to work on. The pace isn't as feverish, instead of doing, usually I'll get home from my regular job and I'll probably, come downstairs and work in the office here for an hour or so a night on just different league initiatives and things that I want to get done, strategic plans and such. But during the summer, I can maybe put in a couple hours a week or something like that. So I do get a little bit of a reprieve, but before you know it, it's time to start ordering stuff for the next
Mhm.
year. And there's always NCAA paperwork about sports sponsorship and things that are due in July, and those important dates to keep in mind to make sure that we stay in a good grace and keep our AQs.
Last question for you. Anything you can or want to share on the league commissioner's desk that would be good for the viewers to maybe be curious? Like, what's Jim working on?
There's paper on the desk, Steve.
All
That's
right. Try to get something out of
Yeah,
you.
I appreciate it, but right now, what I'm really focused on is making sure that the players this weekend have a great
Mhm.
overall experience, that the families that are coming have a great experience. I know Adrian's been a great host for us in the past, and I expect nothing less than that from St. Norbert hosting this weekend. That's really what it's about to me. That's what I care about, is to make sure that the parents, the players, and their families just have just a great
Yeah.
experience. That the league that hopefully has given something to the players. That we do everything we can to make sure that this is really truly the highlight of their season. So
Well, there you have it, the NCHA Commissioners Report for the 24-25 season. Jim, thanks for joining me and giving me some of your time.
absolutely, thanks for having me, Steve. Always good to talk hockey.